Yes, guys. You're locked into another episode of the Red Sea podcast, and I'm your host here, Tiago's father, 89. The title race has been blown wide open. City draw against Palace. City draw against Palace. After having a let-off at Everton with a dubious and suspected handball from Rodri, they finally got their comeuppance. But there's a lot more to talk about. Arsenal versus Liverpool at the Emirates. We go live straight after this intro.
Tell the world we are Liverpool, champions of England.
We've conquered all of Europe. We're never gonna stop. From Palestine to Turkey, we've won the fucking lot. But Paisley and the Shankly, the fields of Anfield gold. We are unsupported, and we come from Liverpool.
Yes, guys. How are we doing? Everyone good?
Evening. All good, mate. You?
Yeah.
Morning to George.
I was going to say good day.
G'day. Yeah. It's always g'day. It's always a good day over here. But yes, it is morning. It's 9 o'clock in the morning.
Bloody hell, guys! I'm sure you all know this familiar face. This is George. He heads up our team over at the Red Sea Down Under, and then my glamorous co-host SS is back in the building as well. And we're back for another episode of our preview. And today we're previewing Arsenal versus Liverpool at the Emirates. Guys, I mean, it's been a great week if you're a Liverpool fan. It's been a shit week if you're a City fan. Let's tell it as it is. I mean, and obviously we'll come on to it a little bit more during the show, but what a great week to be a Liverpool fan. It's been fantastic. We come off the back of a sensational result as well. And then we're heading into a midweek fixture against the Arsenal, who actually are in some decent form. But SS, you know, I know, and I'm sure George knows as well, every time we face the Arsenal, it's an absolute ding-dong of a game. There's always goals. I can remember the Arshavin, 4 and all of that bollocks. I can remember the Robbie Keane volley where it goes top corner. Sadio Mane running down the wing and banging one top bins after cutting in. Philippe Coutinho angling one over the wall and finishing off Arsenal as well. Go on, George.
Neil Mellor.
You've got one as well.
Yeah.
Neil Mellor as well. Mate, we've had some absolute tear-ups with Arsenal Football Club. So it's always a fixture that promises goals. But SS, hit us with the recent head-to-heads, will you?
Yeah, definitely. I think the Champions League ones stick in my mind. Ryan Babel, Steven Gerrard, Theo Walcott days. They were some classic ding-dong games as well. But yeah, recently, feels like we've talked about Arsenal Liverpool a lot lately, like semi-finals, league games, etc. But last time out, 2-0 win away at the Emirates. Diogo Jota with both goals following that 0-0 draw at Anfield in the first leg. Puts us through to the final and gets us that first piece of silverware for the season. Back in November, 4-0 victory at Anfield in the league. Again, Mane, Jota, Salah, and Minamino on the score sheet that day. Last time we visited Arsenal in the league, back in April 2021. Again, a nice 3-0 victory. All goals coming in the second half. Jota, Salah, and Jota. So, obviously, pretty decent form against Arsenal, especially in the league over the past few seasons.
Really, really good form against Arsenal. And like you said, last game we go through to the cup final and ultimately we lift the cup. And Arsenal have reason to have some kind of renewed hope about this fixture. They've got some decent, some decent home form, to be honest, which we're going to touch on at the moment. I mean, Arsenal's home form are amongst some of the best in the league and are currently on a winning run. I think they've not lost in 10 games at home at the moment as well. And they boast one of the best defences in the league at the moment as well, only behind us and Chelsea defensively. So look, it's not going to be an easy game. Let's be honest. I mean, what's your kind of thoughts, George, about Arsenal's current form and Mikel Arteta? Has he finally got these guys playing some decent football?
Yeah, they're looking pretty good. Although we should keep in mind, I probably do the opposite to Pete Kofinas, who's another one of our Red Sea Down Under team members. He tends to play down. And my problem is probably I do the opposite, Jinx, where I go, oh, look, plenty of these things happen and it's a good omen. Arsenal were in incredible form coming into the game against us before and we smacked them 4-0. So I actually think good form from Arsenal isn't the worst thing, because we always want teams to come and play against us. I think the game against Leicester is a good. Leicester aren't Liverpool, but Brendan Rodgers tries to play football, and I think it's a good warm up, not only for Liverpool in that sense, but also to see how Arsenal approach another football team. You know, there are a lot of teams in the Premier League that just like to sit back, and Leicester will always try and play football, much to their detriment, I think, because maybe they don't have the players to do it. There's a couple of things that I do like about the Arsenal side, and maybe we'll go into that later when we do look at Arsenal's top performers. But the main thing I would say is that I think it's good for us that they're in form. We want them to be bullish. We don't want them to be bearish. I think that's the opposite. That's what they do in economics. We don't want them to be flat. We want them to be, like on their hind legs, ready to pounce, because that's when Liverpool can really do their counter-attacking shtick.
I totally agree with you. I mean, SS, I'll give you the final word on this.
Yeah.
Let's just delve a little bit more into Arteta. The reason why I want to is because there were sections of the Arsenal faithful which were calling for his head 6 or 7 months ago.
What else is new?
This is what I'm saying. We've got good friends of the show, of the show that do some stuff with AFTV. I won't call out any names, but they were basically saying, look, it's time now. He's had enough time. But it seems like the Arsenal board's patience is starting to pay off, and Arteta is starting to kind of fulfill all the promise which he came with. We can't ignore he retired at Arsenal Football Club. I wouldn't say he retired a legend, because he wasn't there for long enough really to assume legendary status. He then goes on and forms part of Pep Guardiola's backroom staff. And for a while, when Arteta left Manchester City to take up the position at Arsenal, Manchester City's form did falter slightly. It almost seemed like he was a missing connect between Pep and the dressing room. Has he managed to implement, or is he managing to implement his will and his way with Arsenal Football Club? We've seen departures of Pierre Aubameyang, leaving the club, and other personnel leaving the club as well, which were assumed to be kind of cancers in the dressing room. Is he now starting to get his will, and is this now showing in Arsenal's current form?
I think when you're looking at improving in the league, consistency is the main word. And, we've mentioned the form that Arsenal have had currently and previously, but like Yusuf said in the comments, and like George alluded to there, they've been on good runs before, but they've got to this stage where they seem to beat teams that they are expected to beat, which is an underrated trait in a team, to try and get top four. But every single time they come up against a Chelsea, a City, a Liverpool at the end of this kind of run, they do seem to come up short still. So I do think, again, you look at the form that they've been in, they've beaten a very average Leicester team. They've beat Watford 3-2. They've edged Wolves. They've edged Brentford. They've 0-0 with Burnley. So they've won 4 or 5 games, but again, they're games that you would expect them to win. The more trickier of the fixtures have been at home as well. So I don't think they're pulling up any trees personally. They finished 8th 2 years in a row in Arteta's first 2 seasons. So, a bit like Lampard when he spent money at Chelsea, Arsenal were the biggest spenders, I believe, in the Prem in the summer. So with that comes expectations. So I think 4th was a realistic aim this season, and almost a minimum expectation for a lot of the fan base after putting up with Arteta and trying to believe in this project that it was actually moving forward. So I still think they are, it's not all roses. They went out the FA Cup. Again, they're not in Europe from their poor league form last year. So it's still a work in progress. They've lost the likes of Aubameyang. They didn't manage to bring someone in January, which I felt, they really needed to replace him with, even if it was someone that wasn't really, really long term. So, you look again, you've got Lacazette and Nketiah as the front line, both out of contract in the summer as well. Will they stay? Will they sign a new? Will they spend more money in the summer? So I still think it's a very in the middle kind of project. And, all this money spent, realistically, all they're doing is trying to get back to the Arsene Wenger of 4th is a trophy. And, they sacked him because that wasn't good enough. So all those years later, and they're trying to climb back to where they were before. So I don't know if he's the guy to take them onto a Premier League title within the next 3 or 4 years, but he's definitely improved them this season. But I'd still back us to get a pretty comfortable victory tomorrow.
Well, look, me, I like my stats. And if we look at the Premier League table at the moment, they look like they're flying. 5 wins on the bounce. Obviously, with Liverpool rolling into town tomorrow night. 26 games played, have 3 games in hand over Manchester United, who are currently in 5th. Chelsea have played 28 games, so they've got 2 games in hand on Chelsea. Chelsea currently sit on 59 points, so we know all the turmoil and disruption that's going on there, but that hasn't deterred them from winning. And Arsenal on 51 points. They can afford a free hit in this game because of the amount of games in hand they have over their closest rival, which will be Manchester United. Obviously West Ham United as well, chasing for a European place as well. They probably want to go one better and get into the Champions League this year, whereas they're currently in the Europa League. Wolves on 46 points as well, pressing them hard for that Europa spot, and Tottenham obviously want to get back into the Champions League as well. So that little mini table is quite congested there at the moment. I mean, obviously Spurs on 45 points, Wolves on 46 points, West Ham United on 48 points, and Manchester United on 50 points, and Arsenal on 51, but with that superior amount of games in hand. I mean, from the way that I see it, I think that they can come here and play with a bit of freedom, really, and not have to worry so much about the result as such. Because Liverpool Football Club, especially given the context of what happened yesterday in the Premier League, they're going to be worried. I mean, we've got a screen to share here as well, I'm sure. And we look at the Premier League table at the moment. There it is, guys. You know, the form guide doesn't lie. It points to some decent form from Arsenal, but it is a bit tight and congested in around there. So there's reasons why they can come and turn up tomorrow and not really give it everything and go, do you know what? If we get beat, they expected it. Whereas if we win, fantastic. Do you know what I mean? I mean, George, what's your thoughts before we close this section? And there are some great comments in here as well. We'll actually first we'll flick to some of these comments. So big shout out to you, Joseph, in the comments as well, and big shout out to you, Kyle, as well. But this one here from Joseph, not being involved in cup competitions, that's going to give them an advantage. We saw that in 2014 when we finished second in the league narrowly, but we crashed out of all the cup competitions really, really early, and it just allowed us to play one game every 5 or 7 days, and we were fresh as a daisy. You know, are Arsenal doing that at the moment? This one here, and my worry is that Arsenal is on a good spell, but so are we. I mean, you look at our form at the moment in the Premier League. We're coming off the back of some really, really good form. So there's reasons in both ways. So, George, just to give you the final say on this, do you think that Arsenal are going to come out all guns blazing, or do you think that they're going to kind of sit back, try and soak up some pressure, and play us on a counter attack?
Well, I've got this screen up now, so I just want to very quickly show you. This is actually the match details of their game against Leicester, and they're not afraid to do this thing. I'll show you that. You can have a look at the ball possession. They're conceding a lot of possession there to Leicester, but look at the shots. I mean, first half, it's all Leicester in terms of possession and corners, but it's just, I mean, we're kind of seeing a little bit of a, if that screen is clear enough, I can always do this thing so it's a bit clearer. But kind of a bit of a, I'm not sure how often they did it in the game. I did watch the extended, like we've got this thing called a mini match where you can watch a 25-minute version of the game. But it's almost like bring on the corners. That sounds a bit like Liverpool. I think Arteta, when we're talking about, you know, Arteta's acumen as a manager, these are good signs for Arsenal supporters. It's bad signs for opposition teams, possibly even Liverpool, for them to be soaking up pressure and then hitting on the counter. Very, very clearly here against Leicester, they concede possession. You know, they're edging out the shots in the first half. But look at the second half. That's an absolute whitewash. But they're still not. They don't have all of the ball. I mean, that's pretty even. They're pretty much, what's two? Like it's like two boxers punching each other in the face. Except Arsenal's landing a lot of their hits. So you just asked there, are we expecting them to soak up the pressure? It looks like, yeah. I mean, it looks like what they're kind of doing. And let's not forget that a lot of their games, the last 6 matches, they're not like 5-0 wins or anything like that. They've got a lot of 95th minute, winners, and they just edged Watford, who are crap. So it's basically, I think that the idea of them soaking up pressure and then being a little bit chaotic which is kind of out of Liverpool's playbook. We got to try and do, what is it? That's what gegenpress means. It's like kind of countering. It's like, trying to counter the counter. I mean, gegenpress is pressing when you've lost the ball, but I think that's kind of what Liverpool need to do, the double movement, let them counter and then try and counter against them. I'd imagine Jurgen Klopp talked about this in a lot of his, not sure if it was the season that we won or if it was this season, but he talked about, I think Pep Linders talked about, and Henderson, about improving our counter-attacking play. And if you watched all those inside trainings before the season started, you saw that they were not only practicing counters, but countering the counter. So that would be really interesting to see in this game. But yeah, I do expect that the soaking of the pressure from Arsenal, whether that works in Liverpool's favour. I mean, we don't really like teams soaking, but we want them to soak, then counter, and then hopefully we can counter the counter, I guess.
Yeah, I suppose. And obviously we can try and recover the ball in transition and get at them as high up the pitch as possible. But those stats are absolutely impressive. And thank you for that, George, as well. But the difference between us and Leicester in terms of how we press and how Leicester press, it's different. I don't know if they're going to be able to soak up a Liverpool press in the same way they've managed to do with Leicester, but we'll jog it on. And just before we do, a few bits of housekeeping, obviously to observe as well. Guys, come on. We have been like on the edge of this vertical cliff. Yeah, of 600. I just want to get over the top of it. Get us to 600 subs. Just like, subscribe, and then you can see more of my pretty face. Like, how does that sound? Like, it seems like a fair swap. And George will be dropping in as well. SS will be dropping in too. And we can, we can have a party. But look, and as always, thank you for the 500 subs that we've reached already. It's much appreciated. And if you're not already, head over to the Red Sea Podcast on Twitter and give us a follow. And also, we haven't posted on the Instagram for a little while, but that is absolutely popping. Yeah, every day when I'm opening it up, I'm like opening up to 20 additional subscribers. So whatever you guys are doing, keep hitting up the Instagram, which is great. So let's move on a little bit and let's talk about Arsenal's top performers. Okay, Martin Odegaard has been singled out for much praise recently, and there have been renewed calls for Aaron Ramsey to be instated as England's number one in light of Jordan Pickford's poor club form. I mean, let's talk about the Pickford poor club form, because we're Liverpool fans in here, and any slur against Jordan Pickford is much needed. I mean, Dinosaur Arms is getting absolutely annihilated, and to make it even better, he plays for Everton. He injured Van Dijk last season, and they're potentially on the brink of getting relegated. And Frank Lampard's at the helm. How amazing is this? He's like, all the stars are aligning. Adrian Benitez went in there and started the job, and Fat Frank is about to finish it off and get the Blue Noses relegated. But all jokes aside, Aaron Ramsdale looks like he's in impressive form. But my thing with Aaron Ramsdale, if you'd allow me to start, is I think he makes easy saves look more difficult than they actually are. He likes to throw himself around a little bit. He likes the acrobatics. Yeah, he likes the showmanship, which Jordan Pickford also enjoys, acrobatics and showmanship. Whereas if you look at our goalkeeper, who's arguably the world's best or one of the world's best goalkeepers, I'll hear an argument for or against, but you won't win. He makes it look fucking simple. It looks easy to him. We think about the reaction save on the weekend, point blank range, that should be going in. He's just put a hand out and just palmed it over. There's no theatrical falling on the floor. There's none of that. He's made himself look big. He stayed on his feet. He's done it. Mate, he's even done it balancing on one leg. Do you know what I mean?
There's a really interesting situation in the Arsenal game that backs up your point here. For all of you guys here in the comments who have the ability to open up a new Chrome tab or Safari tab, go have a look at our game against Arsenal. I think it's going to be Partey strikes the ball. It's going top corner, and Alisson. It's almost like it looks like a shitty FIFA graphic of the save, because you want him to dive like David Seaman style and like tip it and then fall to the floor. But he just jumps and does that. And he saves it from the top corner. And it's like, it just makes it look easy. Like you said, he's not falling on the floor. He's not doing any acrobatics. He's just like, casually just reaching up and preventing a top corner screamer. He does make it look simple.
he just never really looks flustered. And if you are to score, it's a worldie. He doesn't really get beat by an SS. I'll come to you. He doesn't really get beat by crap shots.
No.
It's got to be a freaking worldie, like we saw on the weekend.
Into
It
Milan.
was a worldie.
Martinez
goal.
that was
the
screamer,
Martinez goal. Yeah, it was a screamer.
No, it's a good point that you make, because his reading of the game, his positioning is what makes the difficult saves look easy. He's already in that right place. So, you know, when you see goalkeepers scrambling from the left to the right, full stretch, it's because they've got it wrong. They're standing in the wrong place, and they've not kind of readied themselves for this shot. They've not expected it. They've not apprehended it. So Alisson is already reading the game, maybe one step, two steps before it's actually, you know, they're going to pull the trigger. And you see so often, you see a replay of a goal from behind the goal, and you see the goalie, they'll just make that one step to the left just before they dive to the right. And they're like, oh, that's just that little step has done it for them. But Alisson is already leaning the way of the shot before it's even been attempted. So he's already kind of there. So it's a massive difference. There are different styles of being a goalkeeper. You know, sweeper keeper has become, you know, the number one target for every team to have. You know, you had players like Lloris and De Gea that, you know, 5-6 years ago were the best goalkeepers in the Premier League purely on shot stopping. But we've seen the evolution of goalkeepers now, and, you know, Alisson and Ederson have kind of reinvented the position, if you like. So I agree with you, mate. I think Alisson is pretty much the world's best. I can't think of anyone else I'd have over him. I think Ramsdale has definitely improved on what Arsenal had before. I don't think Leno was particularly special, and I think Martinez should have been kept over him. But yeah, Ramsdale has definitely improved them. You know, they've got more clean sheets than they usually do. You know, they're not shipping 5 and 6 goals as they have in the past to some of the big teams as well. So definitely an improvement. Personally, I'd have him as England number one as well. I think if you're looking at the World Cup in December, do you want a goalkeeper that's shipping 5 against Spurs, or do you want a goalkeeper potentially playing in the Champions League? I think it's a bit of a no-brainer. So the only worry is that Southgate tends to stick with players that perform for England no matter what they're doing elsewhere, whether it's been 6 months or a week since they've played for England. He'll stick with that player until they personally let him down in the team. But, you know, you look at England's form, semi-final and a final with Pickford. Will he change it? I think the only way he does is if Ramsdale ends up in the Championship. So I think we might have to get used to him, because I think they might just be okay. It's going to go down to the wire. But yeah, I think personally I'd have Ramsdale over him. He's definitely proved me wrong. He came in from Bournemouth. I think we kind of bantered him a little bit that he'd had like 3 relegations in his career over the leagues, a couple in the Prem. Was it 4? Sheffield United as well was another one, wasn't it? So yeah, you know, they've definitely brought in players to improve them. You know, Ben White, another one. You know, they're slightly better than, you know, 35-year-old David Luiz, etc. But I still feel that they're not quite there yet. I think maybe they're in a bit of a false position. You know, you mentioned Liverpool of 2014. You've got no cups, you've got no European football, you've got 1 game a week. You can edge a Wolves, you can edge an Everton, you can edge a Leeds, you can edge a Watford. But I think when push comes to shove, if they get back into Europe next year, they need to seriously improve the 11 and the squad to continue competing at this level.
Look, let's just interrogate this whole England number one thing really, really quickly. All banter aside, I think Pickford's better than him. I think Pickford's better than him.
You think Karius is a good goalie, so you know.
No. Look, look. I'll be honest, and I'm looking at it subjectively. I do think Loris Karius is a half decent goalkeeper. I just think that the team has evolved past him. If you're putting him in up against Aaron Ramsdale, I'd probably still pick Karius over Aaron Ramsdale, because I see frailties in Aaron Ramsdale's game. I see frailties. His positional awareness isn't great. His concentration isn't great. This is why he's making these instinctive saves. They're instinctive saves. They're not, and this is why we see the difference between him and an Alisson Becker in terms of the saves that he's making, or an Ederson, or even a De Gea, or even a you know, we look on the world stage. We look at the Atletico Madrid goalkeeper,
Oblak.
you know, Oblak, you know, Ter Stegen. Do you see what I'm saying? if Aaron Ramsdale's going to break into that category of goalkeeper and be England's number one, he's got to improve his concentration levels. And we call it staying connected in the game. He's very good at marshalling his back four. He's very good at talking, but staying connected just isn't about communication. It's about reading the game. Pickford has in his armory a European Championship runners-up medal. That gets you a lot of credit in the bank. We can't sit here and also head into the final with the most clean sheets in the competition, or one of the most clean sheets in the competition against arguably some of the best talent in Europe. He done well. And as much as I hate Jordan Pickford, I dislike him for the team that he plays for, and also his assault on Virgil van Dijk. From an England perspective, I think he just edges Ramsdale at the moment. Form is temporary, but class is permanent. And I agree with what you said, SS. I don't think Southgate is going to drop him just yet. I think it will need to take a major error in an England shirt for this to happen. But England have a couple of goalkeepers vying for that number one shirt. You've got Ramsdale, you've got Pickford, you've got Henderson at United, which I think needs a move to resurrect the kind of talk of England goalkeeping. Nick Pope, who came off the back of an injury season last year, played half the season last year, is now back in goal, and actually probably single-handedly keeping Burnley hanging on by their fingernails in the fucking Premier League. They need to get relegated. You've got him as well. So there's a few people, and the England goalkeeping position and England goalkeeper shirt has never been more fiercely contested by some decent young talent than it ever has been right now. I just think Ramsdale is a little bit off it for me. Look, let's switch on to Martin Odegaard, because this is a player which Liverpool were linked with a long, long time ago. He actually came over and looked around Melwood at the time, and he chose Real Madrid as a 16-year-old over Liverpool Football Club. We openly wanted him in the Rodgers era. He was linked, but he seems to have found a kind of a settling point at Arsenal, and he's playing some decent fucking football. Like, he looks like a threat. I think we're starting to see the Martin Odegaard, which came with so much hype when he burst onto the scene as a young boy. At Real Madrid, when he was in Denmark, wasn't he, initially playing, and then obviously went to Real Madrid from there. I mean, what's your thoughts on him, George? Do you think that he could be a linchpin for Arsenal against Liverpool tomorrow night?
Yeah, he's been in good form, and I think what's really interesting about it is also his place in the Arsenal midfield. I think that's what allows him to do what he wants to do. Now, I'm going to bring that screen up again, because it's really interesting. In the last 5 games, Arsenal, I think, have played the same starting 11. I think I looked at 5 or 6 games, and they all get, I think, the manager hands in his sheet, right? And, the sheet says 4-2-3-1 or whatever. And you can see clearly here, Arsenal set up in a 4-2-3-1. However, when you go into the average positions of Arsenal, I want people in the comments and you guys here, concentrate on the red areas. There's Thomas Partey. He's defensive midfielder. There's Granit Xhaka playing left of center and forward. And there's Martin Odegaard playing right of center and forward. So you've basically got yourself a 4-3-3. Interesting that everyone calls it a 4-2-3-1. I think it's just because people don't want to believe that Granit Xhaka can be anything other than a defensive midfielder. But why this goes back to Martin Odegaard. Sorry, go on.
But again, on Xhaka, he has never been a defensive midfielder. This is the problem with Premier League football, because he's big and looks physical. He gets pigeonholed into being a DM. He's not a DM. His time at Mönchengladbach, and when we were linked with him, believe it or not, we were linked with Granit Xhaka. He was an 8. He plays 8 for the Swiss. He is an 8. Yeah, so you're seeing that now in his positions that he's picking up for Arsenal.
Absolutely, and you can see it there. There's his heat map, and that's a left center mid. That's kind of like what a Naby Keita would do for us. He kind of reminds me of our Jordan Henderson. I mean, who knows? Maybe Liverpool could use a left-sided Jordan Henderson, someone who is naturally on that side and likes to drift out that way. Of course, our left centre mid likes to cut in, whether it's Keita or Thiago. Those are the two best in that position, I find. And then Curtis Jones, I think, is also very good there. And on the right-hand side, we have players that like to drift out, like Henderson and maybe even Elliott and Ox, although Elliott has just got this X factor of being able to come in as well. But the reason I bring up Liverpool and then back to Odegaard is that the reason why Odegaard is so dangerous is because he's working on this right-hand side of this 3 midfield. And again, it's a 3. It's definitely a 3. It's not a 2 and a 1. But the reason why he's able to do that is because, take a look at, if I go to average positions here, Cedric Suarez, there's his average heat map. He's looking, that's his red area. That's where he's spending most of his time on the pitch. And then you've got Kieran Tierney, who's going up a little bit more. So who's more defensive out of those two? It's this bloke. Who's more defensive out of your front players? There's Martinelli. He's a striker. He's staying up. Look at Saka. I love Saka. I think he's a great player. He loves doing defensive work, and he comes in and does bits and pieces. But look at that red area. Those two are acting as almost the same player. So I think that's where a lot of their creativity is going to come from. And it's, what's interesting about Saka is he's almost like a traditional RM, right midfielder. He plays like Odegaard, and Odegaard's getting all the plaudits because I guess maybe he's got the story behind him and whatnot. He has been playing well, but I think the dovetailing between those two is what's going to be key for Arsenal. I think that's where they've been finding a lot of creativity. And that's difficult for us because that's what coming down. That's their right hand side. That's coming down Robbo's side. Now I think Robbo can deal with that, but if he's going to have 2 of those coming inside, there's going to be a decision to be made by our LCM, whoever that is. If it's Thiago, I think we're going to do pretty well. I think Fabinho and Thiago are going to have to drift that way. Maybe Henderson comes in almost like an accordion, shrinking in. They're going to have to help out over there because I think that's where the overload's going to be. So like you said, I think you're really right to point out Odegaard's going to be a problem, but it's also his position in that system. Again, just to specify, that left-hand side seems to be more balanced. The right-hand side is protecting the attacking instincts of Odegaard more.
Definitely. So that they seem like they found a creative balance and a defensive balance in that left side of the pitch. But like you said, we've got a few players to nullify that in Andy Robertson, who is going to be able to try and peg them back. Andy Robertson has got the athleticism and the kind of the aggression and intensity to play up against those two. I mean, SS, just think about the left-hand side of that pitch. Do you see that being a worthy battle between Robbo and Saka? Because we've seen it before. Last time it happened, Saka got pocketed. Robbo just dealt with it. It was just like, listen, dude, you cannot deal with this intensity. I'm going to come at, I'm going to kick lumps out of you. I'm going to come at, just like Robbo's like an old school defender, but with pace. Do you know what I mean? He's not, he's just a traditional hard man. Yeah. So again, I don't know how Xhaka is going to cope with that, having to deal with a traditional hard man. Again, with Odegaard, how is he going to cope with a traditional hard man who's just going to run at you and kick lumps out of you? What do you think, SS?
Again, I think it comes down to the level of the opposition. I think you look at Odegaard, Saka, Martinelli. Yes, they can do bits against the bottom half teams in the Premier League, but when they come up against the big boys, they for me they tend to go missing. Martin Odegaard, he's apparently having a fantastic season, 5 goals and 3 assists in 24 games. It's not good enough for me. I don't think that's anything more than average. I think Bukayo Saka is more of a player. I agree with George that is worth a look. 8 goals and 5 assists in 26 games. He's such a young lad and he's such an exciting talent.
Still young.
For me, I don't feel that Odegaard is by any means the finished article. You mentioned he was this wonder kid that had the world at his feet, chose Real Madrid, and obviously it didn't work out. I think there was a loan move to Heerenveen in there as well. So
yes,
he's been moved about. You mentioned he's
and
found
Sociedad as well, and Sociedad.
Yeah, you're right. So
did well for them, I think.
He did do well. Yeah, he did do well in there. But I think coming to the Premier League again, it's a slightly different style. In Spain, I don't think he's the most physical. So I still think he's got a few years left yet to kind of be looked at as a serious threat and to maybe pull Arsenal from trying to challenge to a top 4 to looking at higher, third, second, and even first place in the future. I'm not sure he's that player. So I still think Liverpool have got the levels and the gears that they need. Liverpool can win a game in second gear, but if they need it, they've got third, fourth, and fifth gear as well. I still think Arsenal are limited. I think they can, like George mentioned, I think they can edge teams like Watford even closer than they probably should do. And they do go on these runs, and that's why they, are current favourites for fourth place, because they've been the most consistent out of those ones challenging for it. They've managed to beat the teams they should do. They've managed to go on these 4-5 game winning runs, but every time they come up against a big team, they don't seem to get over the line. So I think we'll have more than enough, but we'll get into the lineup predictions at the end. But I would imagine it's going to be pretty strong from Liverpool, and the likes of Fabinho, Robertson, Henderson. I think, like you say, pocketed is a word that comes to mind. I think the likes of Saka, Martinelli, and Odegaard are just not quite at that level to compete with with Champions League players, albeit they can definitely shine in the odd game. And it's great. We got 3 goals against Watford. You let in 2 as well, but I think we're going to have more than enough to cope with them. We saw a pretty comfortable victory there in the League Cup to go through. Pretty comfortable victories recently in the Premier League as well. I don't really see that changing anytime soon.
You made some really good points there. And just to finish on the Odegaard thing, I think his renewed bit of form comes off the back of the Smith Rowe absence. I don't think him and Smith Rowe can function this side together. I think it's one or other. You can't have them both in the team at the same time. And Smith Rowe being out of the side has helped Odegaard try and kind of stake a claim to that starting position. But it's whether, Arsenal flick back to Smith Rowe when he's back fully fit, because he's an Arsenal boy, isn't he? He's come through the academy. So are they going to show them?
I personally think Smith Rowe's better than Odegaard. He's got 9 goals in 22 games. He was their top goal scorer for a while, and he was actually dropped. It wasn't all injury. Yes, he gets knocked, etc. But he was actually dropped and has been on the bench for a few weeks now, coming off of the bench for Odegaard around the hour 70-minute mark. So it's weird. I'd probably drop Odegaard into central midfield with Partey and drop Xhaka out altogether and have a Smith Rowe, Saka, Martinelli, Lacazette front 4. But maybe I'm a bit Kevin Keegan with that kind of look. But it's a weird one, isn't it? To be a team like Arsenal, you're not really blessed with an amazing team. To have the audacity to drop your top goal scorer just because you think Odegaard's better, it's quite a surprise.
Well, this is it. It's interesting you say, and I was going to move on to that because he come off the back of a couple of like little knocks or whatever not, was dropped out of the team in favour of Odegaard to play. But he has been coming on at 60th sort of minutes. Different players make impacts at different points in the game. So has Arteta, is this potentially a tactical thing where Arteta's looked and gone, you are far more effective at the 60-minute mark than you are starting games? Because there are just, we all know those players that come on and make cameo appearances and they just set the world alight in those cameos. Milner's got to be the example of a cameo man now, isn't he? He's a cameo man. Yeah, he doesn't necessarily set the world alight, but he does the business in the cameo periods, right? Some players just fit that. They really, really do. Right, let's get on to the meat and bones as we step into the Liverpool section of the show. Guys, we all saw this and we all went, oh, fucking hell, didn't we? Mo Salah injury. Let's talk about it. Salah limped out of Liverpool's last game and was a recognisable absentee from training. Although Jurgen Klopp's press conference today, Jurgen Klopp has claimed today that he will train ahead of the trip to the Emirates and he is a tough cookie. What are we thinking, guys? When we saw that, we're all sitting here thinking, oh, God, what is it? But Mo seems to be pretty resilient. He doesn't miss games. So are we going to be surprised if we're not going to be surprised if he lines up against Arsenal? Or is this gamesmanship from Jurgen Klopp? Go on, George.
What's interesting about this is I had no idea where he got the injury from. I just watched the game, and when he had that shot, he had that shot that hits the bar. And when he did that, I saw him, like his toe hit the underside of someone's boot. And he kind of just did a little step on the floor. And I've had that injury so many times. And I made the joke on our Red Sea Down Under show that it's a stock standard football injury where it's like that. Sometimes it's weird. You hit them with your toe on the boot and your heel starts hurting. It's almost like you hit your funny bone or something like that. Like you get the pain in the weirdest spot of the foot. And so I mean, from my limited experience, you play football 4 to 5 times a week. You get all these injuries, and you go to the physio 3 times a week, and you start to have a little bit of a reminiscence of what it feels like and what those injuries are. Whenever I used to get those injuries, you can play on it. It's just annoying. So it's not so much a fitness thing; it's a pain thing. And the only thing I would be thinking is that is Mo is always going to be 100% fit in terms of his fitness. He's going to be able to run. Maybe it's just like, so this thing doesn't hurt 100%. Maybe just take some time off, especially if Jurgen Klopp is saying something like he will train the next day. I wouldn't be surprised to see him starting against Arsenal because of that. Now, I've been wanting him to to be rested for a long time. I reckon the last game would have been perfect for him to be arrested, although he did score his pen and then came straight off. Again, this is not the game I want him to be rested for. So, you want Mo Salah to be protected so that he can last us the season, because he's been running absolutely. And you do that thing at the end of the game where he presses at 85 minutes, and you can see Jurgen Klopp going, "Stop! Conserve yourself." But if Jurgen Klopp says he's going to be back in, we see Salah just come straight back into the side because he's just an absolute machine. But in terms of the type of injury that he had, it looks innocuous and it looks like a painful thing rather than an extended damaging thing. However, remember back to Jordan Henderson, he had that heel injury, just kept niggling at him. He couldn't shake it. He would get it down to 25% healed, and then he'd play a game, it'd go up to 90 and 100. And then it'd go down to 25, go back to 100. So hopefully it's not one of those. The injury that Salah got is an annoying one. I've felt it before. It's very annoying.
I mean, just think about it. The last known Mo Salah injury I can think of was the Champions League judo throw from Sergio Ramos. I cannot sit here and think about another significant injury to Mohamed Salah.
Barcelona, 4-0. He was out. He had never give up on his shirt. He was out for a couple of games. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was the concussion, or I don't know what it was that game.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
But you're right.
I mean, he's never injured. The man is never injured. He constant. Yeah. He's always available. So, like you said, when we hear of a Mo Salah injury, we're like, oh god, it's got to be something big, because he doesn't just go off with little niggles. SS. I mean, what's your thoughts? Is there something to this, or are we just talking about nothing? Is it nothing?
No, you make some good points. I mean, Mo Salah is something else, isn't he? I don't think he's ever missed more than one game for Liverpool. I mean, even when he got his injury with shoulder, it was the last game of the season. So no, he was kind of back by the beginning. And like I say, I think he missed the Barcelona game, but I don't think he missed any others. I think that was the only game he missed that week. So yeah, he's only really ever been out for us for 11 days at one time. So there's no way that he doesn't play. He already took him off with half an hour to go in that game, which Salah was probably already saying, I don't really want to come off even in this game. So I think he comes straight back in. Like you say, it is Mo Salah. It wasn't like George has said, like a really serious injury by the looks of it. It's one that's painful at the time. But no, I think Mo will definitely line up in the first 11 tomorrow, which does make the prediction a little bit harder, because if Mo Salah misses out, it kind of picks itself. But with Mo Salah in there, it's an interesting debate, which I'm sure we'll get into shortly. But no, I expect Mo Salah to play in this game. We've got Forest at the weekend, which he won't feature in. We've then got an international break. I believe the Senegal-Egypt game is on the horizon, the World Cup or bust. So he'll definitely want to be raring to go for that one. So now I think he'll play. I think he'll start. Whether or not he'll finish the game, I would imagine he will do, unless he feels any pain, because he's very rarely brought off. So I'd expect him to play the full 90 against Arsenal. And yeah, I think we're probably reading more into it than perhaps we need to. But yeah, I would expect him to not only play, but to make a serious impact in the match.
Well, that's that done and dusted by SS, isn't it? We better move. Thanks, mate. We better move on then. So Liverpool goal threats. Gary Neville has been quoted that Liverpool's attacking lineup could be the difference between deciding a destination or a title come May. Look, let's get into this. I mean, Manchester City have made the decision over the last 2 seasons to play with this false 9, and have been successful doing it. They had success last season, and they've had renewed success this season with this false 9. Sometimes Phil Foden operating in that role. sometimes Gundogan operating in that false nine role, and they have had success doing it. But Liverpool in January produced an absolute masterstroke when they went out and brought in Diaz. It is a phenomenal signing. The guy looks like he's always been here. I'm telling you, boys, it is Suarez vibes. He just runs at players. He just runs at you. And it was that sequence during the game where he lost the he's trying to dribble, he lost the ball, won it back, went again, lost it, won it back, went again, lost it, won it back, went again, and then was then successful in the dribble and created the opportunity. There is no let up in terms of the press and in terms of the hounding that this man does. And I honestly think that reinvigorated our title charge. If you think where we were at come January, obviously with the African Cup of Nations, both of our two talismanic figures in Sadio Mane, who was then eventually crowned the King of Africa, and Mo Salah, both in the final up against each other, going into the deepest depths of the competition. And guys, if you haven't, our AFCON show is there to watch back as well. You can watch some of our AFCON shows back on the Red Sea podcast as well, because we've done a full coverage of the African Cup of Nations. I mean, Liverpool went into the market and they were open. They didn't want to make this signing until the summer. But I think our hand was forced in two ways. Spurs' interest was very real. They wanted Diaz. Like it was, and I think if they'd have got Diaz, it would have changed the complexion of maybe Tottenham's season in the same way it's changed the complexion of our season. And also, I think Mohamed Salah was pushing, if he's to sign this contract, which we're going to get onto a little bit later on in the show, he wants to see Liverpool compete on all fronts, and that means bringing in the best talent. SS, I'll come to you first. Where do we feel that our attacking threats now lie with the addition of Diaz? You know, we've got Firmino, Salah, Mane, Jota, Diaz, Minamino scoring goals in the cup, Origi scoring goals in the cup. It just seems like we've got 7 attacking options, out and out attacking options. Manchester City do not have 7 out and out attacking options. So what's your thoughts on this, my man?
I think it's brilliant because, I mean, we're so used to seeing the Mane, Salah, Firmino trio for so long. No matter what the form, no matter what the injury, no matter what the knock, are they scoring goals? Are they not scoring goals? It was those 3 week in, week out. And that's why we never competed in the cups, because they needed a rest at some point. And I think this is the first time we've actually reached the quarterfinals of the FA Cup under Klopp and his first domestic trophy. So that would back that statement up. So the fact that we can pick the most informed 3 from 5 only strengthens us across the big 2 competitions and overall. And you mentioned Minamino, Origi can come in and do some jobs against, lower opposition in those cup competitions. But what's fantastic is, like you say, Diaz has come in and hit the ground running. Like you say, it looks like he's always kind of fitted the mold of Liverpool. He's just got it straight away. Robertson mentioned that, they don't speak. He doesn't speak a word of English, and even if he did, he wouldn't understand Andy Robertson. Let's be fair. But the fact that they can just link up straight away on a football basis just shows you, what an impact he's had. So it is great because you've got Firmino that's been struggling with an injury. We've not really noticed it. It's not really affected us in any way. Jota's been out injured and has slowly been coming back into the team. But, we've almost been playing 3 wingers up front with Diaz, Mane and Salah, and we've been winning football matches. So it's a fantastic position to be in. And, you mentioned Manchester City, which are the obvious comparison. For so long, yes, they don't play without a striker anymore, but for so long, they've had so many options. We think back to the Dzeko, Balotelli, Aguero days. There was always options. You play the one in form, you play the one who's fit and available. So it's nice to be able to go into this game with Arsenal tomorrow and you think, well, okay, Firmino probably could come off the bench. Jota's probably still a performance away from getting a start, but you'd still go with Mane, for me, Mane, Salah and Diaz, who are the informed 3 of the 5. And you've then got options to rotate at the weekend, and even going into the Champions League, the quarterfinals, the FA Cup semi-finals potentially on the horizon, and the 10-game run into the Premier League. You've got 3 of the 5 are going to be, as fresh as possible for those key games. So I think it makes a massive, massive difference. And really, I think that's what we've been missing to compete with Manchester City, which showed in the COVID season where the two biggest squads in the world, really, at the time, Chelsea and Man City met in the Champions League final and won one of the big trophies each. So, yeah, for me, I think that's taken us onto that next level.
Yeah, I totally agree. And look, we were screaming out for this, and SS, you were really vocal about this. The kind of the lack of rotation amongst the front three, and you've been saying it for a long time. And obviously your prayers were answered when Jota came in, and then your prayers were re-answered when we went out and bought Diaz. So there can be no excuses. And for me, I want this. I don't want this to be a replacement. I've said it for a while now. I don't want this to be a replacement. This has to be an addition. I don't want to see Mane walking out the door in the summer. I don't want to see Minamino walking out the door in the summer. I don't want to see Firmino departing in the summer. Or God forbid, and we'll get onto this in a minute, Salah potentially walking out the door in the fucking summer. This has to be our front sort of forward lineup going forward if we are to compete and challenge on all fronts. George, I'll come to you. And look, the Jurgen Klopp era has to be remembered for trophies. It doesn't want to be remembered for, we played mega football. It was sexy football. What did we win at the end of it? And that's what we have to remember this era for.
Yeah, and doing something like I always mention this again on our other shows, and I probably mention it all the time, is that Liverpool make the same mistakes. Like at the same time, maybe it's not the same mistake, it's the same policy where we keep letting players go for free. But something we keep doing is we're light in the January transfer window, or we're light in any transfer window, and we don't bolster. I think one of the biggest mistakes we made was just not making these signings that we're seeing now after we won the Premier League. If we had done that, and this is the thing, is that this ownership group takes risks, and am I not mistaken? If FSG, I think they do. So they're investment, either bankers or they're investors of some sort. So they're commercially apt. They like investments. They like seeing return on things, and with that comes a certain amount of risk, and you hedge your risk with things. And so, if we had a normal world, when Liverpool win the Premier League, they're happy with another season straight after that, where they win the Premier League and they use those funds to kind of pad the squad, but not pad the squad with talent, just pad the squad with resources. That's what they did with Melwood, or going over, to the new training ground. But what we've seen here is that instead, like, COVID came in, and that risk didn't pay off because they've done that little padding, and then COVID hit, and they're like, it's almost like it's happening in Australia with the housing market. Like, the houses are getting really expensive, and people are thinking, should have bought 2 years ago. Dang it. It's probably like that for everywhere in the world. It's like that in Los Angeles. I think it's London. I'm pretty sure everyone, like, property prices are soaring, or things are soaring. You're like, why didn't I buy it a little bit earlier? Gold prices are soaring. Why didn't I do that earlier? Liverpool will now be kicking themselves when they won the Premier League. Why didn't we just get these players in now? And so we're seeing a change of that policy where we've gone in January and we've bought Diaz. We've just gone, look, I'm not waiting until the summer to do this thing. And that's good. We want to see that. Now, no one could have predicted COVID, because that has what's inflated prices and made things really volatile. And it sunk Liverpool bad because we lost Van Dijk, and that risk didn't pay off. I hope, and not getting the defender when they needed them, when we lost Van Dijk and Matip and Gomez. So it shows that the ownership is thinking about, learning from those mistakes. And I agree with you. There's that idea about trophies at the end of it. I'm just more of a purist, and I've watched Liverpool. I started supporting them 22 something years ago, and I've never. This is going to sound horrible, and people are going to probably roast me for this, but I haven't been used to seeing them win trophies. So I just love them so much that I love seeing.
Neither have we, mate. And anyone in the comments, unless they're celebrating their 60th birthday, neither have they. Yeah, so let's be real.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, if this was any other era, Liverpool would have won 5 league titles in a row, and we're just up against oil money. Now, Alex Ferguson never had to deal with that. Arsene Wenger never had to deal with that. None of the teams have ever had to deal with this shit. And this Manchester City side is one of the greatest sides that the world has ever seen. And they're most expensively assembled. I think Pep Guardiola spent, what, $1 billion just on that squad, over $1 billion. So I agree the trophies would be nice, but I'm loving every week as it comes. If the trophies don't come, it's going to be heartbreaking. I do want to see the trophies, but I think this Liverpool side is special. And, no matter what trophies are in the trophy cabinet, I think it's I just think that what they've done is exceptional, and no other team in the Premier League could have done this, going up against the expensively assembled Manchester City side like this one has. And we've done it the right way. We've done it the honest way, more honest than not, let's just say.
So let's deep this, because I'm a real sticker for this stuff, right? Because you make some really, really good points in there, but some of it it just doesn't sit with me, because when we look at Liverpool, where we were at, we were in our dominant era, 70s and 80s. We were that side. I was watching an interview with John Barnes when he was talking about how Liverpool worked, where it was like they went out and bought the best players, and it was a case of, we don't coach you, we've gone and brought you because you're the best. Go out and play. Go and play. And that's what they did. It was like, you turn up to training, pick up a bib, you're against him or you're against them. Go and play. That was training. As he says in his own words, because that was training. And we turned up on a Saturday or Sunday, whenever it was, and we steamrolled teams, because we were the dominant superpower in English football and also European football. We were the dominant superpower. Then for a brief while, Man United turned up on the block and was like, we've got money now, and started spending. Premier League was born, and Manchester United ran away with it, 20 league titles, and they were the dominant superpower. And then from there, you had Chelsea and all the billions that Roman Abramovich has spent over the years, and how much money he sunk into that football club. Briefly around that, you had Newcastle under Keegan, who were spending huge sums of money to try and bridge the gap up against Manchester United, or Liverpool on the peripheral. Arsenal has spent, have been more strategic in the transfer market, not spent sums, but they were a force for a short period of time. So, and then obviously now we've got Manchester City, and potentially we've got Newcastle, who are now coming into it as well. So I do feel there's always been those superpowers in football. And this is why, for me, I just think it would be criminal. It would be criminally, not of Jurgen Klopp and this football team, it would be criminal of the ownership not to back Jurgen Klopp enough that we finish this era with a big enough trophy haul to say that was a success. Because you're only going to be measured on success, or success is only measured with trophies. That's the only measurement of success. We can sit and say we played sexy, attractive football. Arsenal is a prime example of it. They played some of the best football in Europe, but never won fuck all. Really, they didn't win any European trophies. They went invincibles, but Celtic went invincibles. Let's call it as it is. We went up against one of the most as you said, most expensive assembled teams of all time, and only lost one game in that season and finished second. So when you put it into context, and we had more points than them when we finished at the end of the year, 98 points. They finished on something like 83 points and were invincible. We got 10 more points than them and still didn't do it. So it just doesn't sit right with me. I just think trophies. I want Premier Leagues. I want Champions Leagues. I want cups. I want doubles. I want trebles. And we're still in it for a potential quadruple this year. And 6 months ago, well, not even as much as that, maybe 3 months ago, my co-host SS over here was writing the title race off. So I just think to myself, we've got to pull this out of the bag. It's got to be done. Even if we don't lift the Prem this year, we've got to get the FA Cup and the Champions League. It's a must. It is a must. And I'm sorry, guys, if you think I'm heaping the pressure on, but I feel that's the only way that we are going to remember this era for being what it is, and the best footballing era we're going to see for a long time as Liverpool fans. Guys, I'm conscious of the time. So let's jog it into the next segment, and SS will lead in with you. So we all saw the scenes on the TV last night. We all saw the scenes. Ball Mark II, where Palace pull an absolute worldie and display Manchester City's attacking frailties. 1-1. But let's not. Oh, sorry, 0-0. Sorry, but let's not forget Liverpool have cut the gap from 14 points at its biggest. Yes, we had 2 or 3 games in hand. I get it, but still, at that point, 14 points was the gap. Yeah, if we win tomorrow, it's down to 1 point with us having to go to the Etihad. We've sustained some tricky periods throughout the season. Injuries we've had as well. Let's not forget Firmino being in and out, Jota being in and out, Henderson being in and out with injuries, Thiago being in and out with injuries. We've managed to overcome that, and the African Cup of Nations. Teams are writing us off saying, yeah, we'll get to the AFCON and Liverpool will filter away. They won't even qualify for Champions League. We've got through it. And now we're potentially restricting Manchester City and breathing down their necks. In fact, we're not even breathing down their necks. We're at Manchester City's throats, challenging them for this championship trophy for the Premier League. SS, it's a title race now, if ever it has been one, surely.
No, 100%. Like you say, looking back, 14 points behind. I mean, geez, it was buried, wasn't it? And you look at how relentless Man City have been, even when we've been this close to them. We've been a point behind them before, and we just followed them a point behind to the end of the season. So, yeah, we've done fantastically well to bring the gap down, but we're still behind them. Even if we win tomorrow, we're still behind them. So we still need to go to City and do something, or we still need to match them yard for yard for the remainder of the season, because how heartbreaking would it be to lose the title again just by 1 point, or goal difference or something like that. So no, massive credit to Liverpool. Southampton have drawn with City, Spurs beat them, and then, like you say, most recently Palace. So they are dropping points that you're not used to seeing them drop, against the lower kind of oppositions, if you like. So you mentioned that they've been playing a false 9 and they have had success with it, but maybe it is finally catching up with them, and they are missing that that goal scorer, that Aguero moment that maybe gets you over the line. And you look at Liverpool, Diaz is the guy that gets us the breakthrough against Brighton. Mane, is Salah, is it Jota, is it Firmino? We've got so many options. So looking at the remainders of the fixtures, Sky Sports did a kind of graphic to show you the fixtures remaining. I don't think there's a lot in it personally in terms of opposition left to face. I think our second most difficult game in the running is tomorrow night. Other than that, most teams you'd expect us to beat. Most teams you'd expect Man City to beat as well. So, yeah, we've done brilliantly well to close the gap, but let's not take our foot off the pedal just yet.
And I said it in our group chat. There's no let up. And I quote, "There is no fucking let up." Yeah. We do not let these off the hook. If they want to be called champions of England, we make them fucking earn it. Last year, they had a free run at it. They had a free run last year, yeah, because of the injuries that we had. Year before, we did it. The year before that, we challenged them every step of the way. Yeah, we made them work for it. Even a year prior to that, we still challenged and made them work for it. I said it in a space last night. Big shout out to Don Hussam of Football Wars. We're the only fucking team in the last 5 years that have made Manchester City work for the league title. No one else has been close. No one else has been close.
You'd even say, like what I was saying before about how unlucky it is for us that the moment that we're great, we've got this billionaire squad. But I mean, imagine if you're City, you spend billions of pounds and you're like, this should be a walk in the park. And then this stubborn Liverpool side come out from nowhere. And it's just, how annoying if you're Manchester City of all teams to have done it. They're like, we've beaten the Russian billions of Chelsea. We've beaten the sustained 30-year juggernaut that is United, staved off Arsenal, and then Liverpool as well. Well, how did they do that? It must be so frustrating for them.
But Pep Guardiola says it himself, and he referenced it in an interview. He goes, "You do everything, and then there's Liverpool." That was his say. You do everything, and then there is Liverpool.
But by the way, at the end of his what was his Champions League game, and they were asking him about something random, and he just went like, Liverpool will be 3 points behind us no, Liverpool are 3 points behind us. And then I'm not even sure if the interviewer, the journalist, said, don't you mean 6? Or everyone's like, they're 6. He's doing that manifesting stuff that you're supposed to do for, like, if you want stuff. He's doing that inadvertently. And I think he's trying to do the whole Pete Kofina's jinx by going, if I say the bad thing, then maybe it won't happen. And I tell you what, Jurgen Klopp doesn't play by those rules. He plays by, if I say it, it'll happen. He's got that positive reinforcement. So Pep Guardiola's a bit of a pessimist there. He's a bit cynical. Whereas Jurgen Klopp is always like, no, I believe. From doubter to believer, that's his mantra.
100%.
So I think it's the wrong game to play in this moment. But I mean, Manchester City are so good that he can afford to make those mistakes. Literally, they can afford anything, even mistakes. But I found that really funny that they said that, and they lost against Spurs. So the gap was 3 points. And he keeps saying Liverpool are constantly behind us. The more times you say it, mate, the more times Liverpool are going to believe it. So be careful what you wish for, Pep.
Well, this is just it. They're all fucking cracking up. I don't know if you've seen the Silva interview last night, the Bernardo Silva interview last night, and I feel that this is a constant theme with Pep. He starts to overthink things, starts to try and, rather than do the basics, he starts to focus on the minutest of details. Some of the things that you just have to leave down to chance, he wants to try and control, and it works against him. I mean,
that's a different mindset there. I mean, you've got Pep Guardiola going, everything, Liverpool are the favorites right now, and then Silva saying we're the favorites. That's a change in mindset. That Jose Mourinho always says, we are the underdogs, we're shit, and that's how he galvanizes his squad.
Siege mentality.
Pep here, Bernardo Silva's trying to be the needle here, and he's saying the wrong thing because it's completely against what his cynical, negative manager is trying to say. Not negative manager, cynical, superstitious manager is saying. It works for Pep because he gets to say, oh, look, even though Liverpool are the favorites with all their strikers, I, poor little me, still managed to win without my striker. So he's trying to build that narrative. And if you don't have your players on board there, it's going to get a little bit confusing for them mindset-wise.
Exactly. I totally agree with you. Right, let's get into the juicy part, which is the Mohamed Salah contract, and we'll just roll through this. SS, he signs, doesn't he?
Did you hear about the agent when Klopp made his comments and he tweeted some laughing emojis?
Yeah,
I think I think Klopp kind of just said that the offer's on the table. It's a take it or leave it option, and I don't think Salah's going to take the current option. So someone's going to bust. Someone's going to budge. Personally, I can't see Mo Salah getting the love that he gets worldwide at any other club. He's even turned a continent into Liverpool fans, basically. So I don't think he wants to leave. I just think he wants to be paid what he's worth. You compare his wages to the likes of David De Gea, Kevin De Bruyne. He's not on their level at the moment in terms of financial reward. And yeah, 200 grand a week would be great for 99% of the world. But if you're that good and you're comparing yourself against players that aren't as good as you, that are earning, Sancho's day one at Man United, he was on 350 grand a week. That's nearly double what Mo Salah's on. So is that fair? No. Liverpool have a certain wage model. Salah is going to be the first person to break it. And if you're going to break it, then it's for someone like him. But, say he signs a contract for $500,000 a week or something like that over 4 years. In terms of the cost that would be, you'd spend more on trying to replace him with a transfer fee and maybe half of that on wages. So it's still a no-brainer for me. The monetary sense, the performances that he's put in, and it's a guaranteed win because you're not taking any risk on bringing a player in from a different team, a different league that you hope will hit those kind of numbers. Because I'm telling you, there's not anybody else in world football that can come in on day one and hit those numbers that Mo Salah hits. So even if that's Mbappe, I don't think that he's going to instantly impact the Premier League as Mo Salah does on a weekly basis. So yeah, 100%, you have to sign him. You look at Ronaldo, he's still scoring hat-tricks at 37, 38. Mo Salah has got years left. He's at the top of the world. Let's give him a 4-year deal, pay him whatever he wants. And after that, maybe we can have this conversation in 4 years' time. But for me, it's ridiculous that this is even a subject. But, I can't remember who it was that said it. I think it might have been Ross when we had him on our January special, that maybe it's just a financial thing. Why would we give him an extra 200 grand a week in January when we can do it in May. So hopefully that's what's happening.
That's a really good point. That's actually a very good point.
and yeah, it's true. And we've been peddling this for a little while, saying that, you know, we think it's going to get done, but it's just not going to get done yet. You know, let's put all the theatrics to one side. But I'm also of the opinion of this.
Mm.
And the reason why I'm of this opinion, and you know, George, we spoke about this on the Red Sea Down Under the other day when I jumped on your show really quickly. Liverpool Football Club, for as long as I can remember, and as long as anybody can remember, and do you know what, we're gonna name them together now, has always had, regardless of how the team's performing, one of, if not the best number 9 in world football. We look back at Keegan. After Keegan, it was Dalglish. After Dalglish, it was Rush. After Rush, it was Fowler. After Fowler, it was Owen. After Owen, you had Torres. After Torres, you had Suarez. After Suarez, we then, do you know what I mean? We have always
Coutinho, arguably.
We've always had the best number 9 in world football.
It wasn't a bad list there, TF. I enjoyed that list.
Mate, we can go back further than Keegan if you like.
And there's a talisman as well. If it's not a 9, it's a talisman. You know, it's someone that because we had Coutinho after that. There's always going to be someone we can idolize as a hero, always.
Do you see what I'm saying? So there's always been someone in our squad who has the capabilities of being that talismanic, that titanic figure on the world stage. We are Liverpool Football Club. You know, Remy, whatever his freaking name is, Abyss, will do well to remember that. We are a juggernaut of world football. Yeah, we are a juggernaut of world football. The days are long gone of the Andy Carrolls begging players to sign us in the early FSG days or the Hicks and Gillette's days. Those days are long gone. We are a global superpower again on the world stage. So, is his agent playing a dangerous game? Could we? And again, look, I back Mo Salah to probably, you know, do his goal scoring attributes and repeat these feats wherever he goes because he's that type of player. But we've seen Gini Wijnaldum be booed off by PSG fans in recent weeks. And SS, I'm going to bring this one up. Yes, I am. He's been booed off because he thought the grass was greener. Liverpool Football Club are embarking on a title challenge without Gini Wijnaldum. That little Gini-shaped hole that we spoke about for so long seems to have rapidly closed up in that midfield.
Mm-hmm.
Why can we not do this again with losing a Mohamed Salah? I don't want him to go, but I have to think about the prospects that he could leave this football club because he's not signing a new deal at current. Yes, I appreciate we could then put that new deal to him in May and obviously save ourselves some money. It's an FSG thing to do. We're not going to spend any more money than we fucking have to. They'd go into Tesco's, buy a pound of milk and ask for the fucking change. This is what FSG do. Yeah. So
yeah,
it just makes me think that, are we going to sit there and stand firm and go, no, that is what's on the table. The same way we did with Coutinho, the same way we did with Gini, that is what's on the table. Take it or leave it.
It's funny that very quickly you mentioned that whole idea of the contract. It happens with actors. I mean, TV series will have to pay for the right to, when they offer a contract to someone, that's when you start paying them. And so TV series will lag on the contract because the moment the actor signs it, that you know, it's now the responsibility. It's responsibility of the employer, the new employer, to now take care of them until that happens. So there's been many times I've signed my contract three weeks into my bloody job because it's still getting negotiated. But, you know, going back to that point that you're making there about, you know, the Salah situation and, you know, we can let him go. No one's bigger than the club. I think there's an awkward situation here with regards to ego. And the thing is that the only ego I care about is the ego of the club. And it's important. The ego of the club here is very important because if the ego of the club is shattered in anything like this, it means that there are ramifications for the future. We saw that with Andy Carroll. The club said, let's just go for it. 35 million. Let's break the transfer record. That was like getting a cancer. It took ages of, chemo, so to speak, to like slowly like heal Liverpool of that shit stain of a decision, because every club went, you got 35 mil for him? Well, if he's 35, then this is 40 and this is 50. It took us ages. And now Liverpool are the hard men of, world football in terms of negotiations.
Yeah.
We saw that with Guinea. Yeah, exactly. I mean, Levy's doing it and he's got, I don't know what club he's playing with there, but Liverpool are doing it on a proper scale, with actual success. So this is the problem, is that Mo Salah's also got an ego here, and you can't go,
But
I
has
want
he
this,
though?
I
Is it
want
just
this.
his agent? Has he got an ego?
No,
Because he comes across as the most
he's got it.
humble
Yeah.
person.
No, he's got it. He's got the
Or is it his
ego.
agent?
He's got the ego, and the agent is the one that is batting for him. I know this from experience in the industry as well. Acting is very similar to football here, because you're artists, you're creating some sort of art, and you've got an agent, backing you up, and it's up to your manager. Like, you will go as the performer, if you're the footballer, you'll probably go, just go ask him for more money, and then the agent goes in and asks for it, and maybe the club comes to Salah and says, can you ask for a bit less? He goes, it's not me. I didn't ask them. The manager deals with that. I have no idea. He's the one negotiating it.
Yeah, you don't buy a dog and bark yourself, do you? So I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. But he's still got the ego there, because his team is going, I mean, Mo Salah's going like, I am this good. He's not going to want, let's just say 400 grand, and then Liverpool say, no. And then he goes, fine, 200. He can't accept that, which is why we saw what you brought up on the Red Sea.
Can he? Yeah.
And you saw in the Red Sea Down Under, where they go, fine, take 400, but we take your image rights. So Liverpool are going, you can have the egotistical, like, public win, but financially we can't afford that thing. And by the way, I think if Liverpool offer him a 400k, it's not going to be like that thing where they would hide it and go like, oh, it's definitely 400k. They will say, we're giving him 400, but we're taking half his image rights. I reckon that'll be very publicized, so that when you're not Mbappe, but when your next player comes in, and they say, but Solo got 400, it's like, yeah, but we took his image rights. So do you want 200 and all your image rights, or do you want 400 and we take all of your image rights?
We own you forever. Like, what do you? Do you know what I mean? What do you want? Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, so it's tough. I reckon there's a middle ground. I reckon Salah just goes for 350, 375 and call it there. But it's going to be hard for Salah to do that, because he said, I'm the best player in the Premier League, and he's correct, and he should be paid that money. That is the end of the conversation. But Liverpool are not Manchester City. They cannot afford that wage structure going in the future. And we can't have players like Sadio Mane, especially, who hasn't. By the way, the most wily negotiator in all of this is Sadio Mane, because they haven't asked for a thing. He's got the exact same contract as Salah, if I'm not mistaken, as in it ends the exact same time, if I'm right. And Firmino. Yeah. So they're just waiting back. And then if Salah gets 400, Mane goes, okay, I'm not worth 400, 395, please. And it's like Liverpool got a big problem on their hands.
But this is what we spoke about in the Red Sea Down Under. We spoke about these protracted negotiations and what players will do behind the scenes. Like you said, Sadio Mane will come in and go, bro, I'm the king of Africa. Like, what the fuck? Like, do you know what I mean?
Correct.
I'm the king of Africa. I just won the African Cup of Nations. Pay me. Do you see what I'm saying? Pay me. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, you get Virgil van Dijk, who has got an activation, who could potentially have an activations contract, which says, well, you need to match me with him. Agents will do these things. They will insert these clauses to protect the benefit or to protect the interests of their clients. SS, unless you've got anything to add on the Salah contract talk, we will flick over to Liverpool score predictions, and then we'll just throw a predicted lineup out there. So cool. Score predictions, SS. I know you like to go first on the score predictions. Oh no, excuse me, predicted lineup. Forgive me. Predicted lineup and then score predictions. So I'll start with predicted lineup. I think personally we're going to see Trent, obviously right back. Goalkeeper will be Alisson. The defense in the middle will be Van Dijk and Matip, and then left will be Robbo. Midfield: Thiago, Henderson, and Fabinho for sure our most experienced midfield. I think Henderson will drop out probably around the hour mark, and we might see someone else come in to take over around about the hour mark, probably a Millie, just to shepherd the result home. But the real thing is the front three. You know, does Diaz go again and play again? You know, after he's not had much break, I think he does. I think Mane starts centrally, and again, I think Mohamed Salah plays. SS, are you any different from that, or George, are you any different from that?
I think you're pretty spot on. I don't think Jota has quite earned a start yet. He's come off the bench a few times. He's not quite hit that scintillating goal scoring form that made him undroppable, basically, when he first got that run in the team, and you had to stick with him, didn't you? So, yeah, for me, I think you're pretty spot on. There's always a 50-50 with a Konate Matip, but usually, you know, he tries to make that 11 that you just mentioned hop from big game to big game. So that was the Inter match. You know, they missed. You make changes for Brighton, you make it the Arsenal lineup, you make changes for Forest, etc. So yeah, I would agree with your 11.
George, any different from that?
I was flirting with the idea of Konate, and then I just had to quickly check there. He was not part of our. I think that he was ill. I think that's the thing. He got some illness that Matip had before. I think someone made a joke about that.
He's back now.
He's back.
He's back. Klopp said he's back. Yeah.
Look, I think it's just Matip. We don't want him to do that thing where he's kind of becoming the new Lovren, where it was like if he starts 6 games in a row, he'll break down. So I'm worried about that thing. But it's funny because we pretty much. I'm going to share my screen here because I pretty much picked the same lineup that you're talking about. It's just that front three, obviously, that's going to be a little bit different. And of course, it's a very crude drawing there. But I've actually. I'm flirting with the idea of Jota, and I'm going to tell you why. And I don't know, because I thought Salah would be injured. So I'm just assuming if Salah's injured, then Diaz, I think, starts on the right-hand side, and I think Mane on the left. But it could be either or. We've seen Diaz on the left, and this is the strange thing, is that Jurgen Klopp has not played Mane on the right. He's so good out there. He was so good there for us, obviously, when he first came into the side, and he was flirting with that position when we had Salah go central. But it looks like Mane is either preferred as our false 9 or as a left winger. So that's the only reason why I've put Mane out left. And if Salah's not fully fit, then Diaz starts on the right. The reason I've gone with Jota is because obviously he has a good track record against Arsenal. But there's a goal that Arsenal concede a little bit, and they conceded this chance against Leicester. It's this ball there into there, and that's the Ramsdale save. If you saw that point blank save, there's also a goal that Liverpool score against Arsenal. It's from here, Trent Alexander-Arnold into there, and it's Sadio Mane. And then there's also a few other chances in the game where it's this ball here going into there. And by the way, if I just keep drawing that, we'll all realize that the player that is doing that is this guy, Trent, and he's the best in the world at doing that. So if Arsenal have a little bit... Sorry?
Interestingly, Matip's ball into Diaz for the goal against Brighton was from a similar area. He kind of drifted and floated that one in behind the
ended up here in Hendo's position. Yeah, more or less.
Yeah.
And there was a comment before saying someone doesn't like Diaz because he's a little bit too he's not in sync with the 3 forwards. I have this amazing tweet that I never sent out. I was watching. So basically, Diaz signs for Liverpool, and then he plays against Peru, and they lose. And I watched the whole 90 minutes. We had access here in Australia to the South American, what do they call it, the cup. And I watched the whole game and just watched Diaz, and he was left wing, and every time he's just into the box, striker, goes back to left wing, into the box, striker. And I had this quote. I basically had this tweet saved up going, what have we learnt from Diaz? Starts left wing, ends up as a striker. There have been moments in Liverpool where he's ended up right wing because he's just like, I want the ball. And he's so
hungry,
quick. And he's so quick and he's so hungry that he ends up sprinting back to his position. He's not too bad. I don't know if that'll serve us in a game like this with Arsenal's quality. He may need to stay out there. But basically, that's what we see with the goal against Watford. And going back to SS's point before about wanting that striker in January, we don't. It's hard to win that Brighton game. That's the opening goal, Diaz. I guess if Diaz does not sign, do we win that Brighton game? I don't know. I mean, that's 1-0. Who does that in our team? That's a
Probably not.
crazy run. Crazy
Probably
run
not.
to make. So
Yeah.
so weird. And for the same reason that some people might think, oh, does he disrupt the flow and chemistry of the front three? Good, because the flow and chemistry of the front three has been a little bit. They've been great, but it's been a little bit individualistic anyway. They haven't been really passing to each other that much. Although Sadio Mane does pass to Mo Salah in the reverse fixture against Arsenal. I think it's our third goal or fourth goal. But basically, the reason I wanted to bring this up was it does lead into our starting 11. I like the idea of Jota just because he's incredible in the air. And this Trent ball is going to be dangerous, in my opinion, whether it's from a free kick like we scored against them previously or like the ways that we played against them in the cup. I think the reason why that's dangerous is because it's purely based on skill of the deliverer, Trent. We don't need to work the ball. You work the positions and the moments beforehand, but you don't need to get to that byline like Arsene Wenger used to love to do. And by the way, we also did it against Arsenal. I guess if you keep playing the ball where Trent is there, eventually they start pressing you, then you can get in behind. But to have that weapon to start with, I reckon, and this is the great thing, is that Sadio Mane scores that goal previously. So Mane could start where Jota is, and then I could just eat my words. At the end of the day, I don't care if I'm wrong. Whoever's playing there, if it's Mane or Jota, I don't really care. I just know that Trent ball from the right-hand side will be dangerous, and I don't mind if it's Jota with that more goal instinct that starts that might be advantageous to us. It just all depends on whether Salah is fit, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Right, score predictions. It's that time in the show which SS loves. So I'll give you the honours of going first, mate. Talk to me. What are you thinking?
I'm going to go 3-1 Liverpool.
So you're backing Arsenal to score, yeah?
I think they'll get one, yeah. Whether that be from Saka or Martinelli, I think they're going to be dangerous, speedy wingers. They're going to get probably a couple of big chances in the game, and I think they'll probably take one of them. But yeah, I think our front five, no matter which three you go with, are all going to be, looking to get a goal. I think we've got 3 of the top 4 goal scorers in the league. We've got 3 of the top 4 top assisters in the league as well. So yeah, they're only going to be adding to those numbers, aren't they? So yeah, I think fairly comfortable. I don't think we'll be behind. I think we'll maybe be 2 up and they'll get 1 back, and we'll go and finish them off with a 3rd goal while they're pushing for an equaliser. That'd be hopefully what will happen. And yeah, like you say, go 1 point behind Manchester City with that game on the horizon. How big does that become?
Massive. George, what are you telling me? Score prediction.
I don't know. This is weird. Either 3-0 or 5-0. I don't know which one of those to pick. It's very bullish, very bullish. But I'll go with 3-0. Although, should I just go in the middle and just say 4 because that's what we won by last time? I think Liverpool have been playing in 3rd gear, and we have a problem with 3rd gear as we saw against Inter. I think this is the game that Klopp has been waiting for. I think he does do this a lot, where he waits for packs of or select sections of games to be done, and he works towards this moment. He loves doing it for the Christmas break, and then since he figured out the Christmas break, he had to figure out the January slump. He's figured all that out, and I think this one was the hardest fixture in this run of games, Arsenal, because I think he knew that there was a run that Arsenal were on. I think we go back into 5th gear here, and if we do, we're too much for them. So it should be 3-0, 4-0, 5-0. Let's go 3.
This is interesting because you're right. I think our big results come in flurries. We'll go out and we'll fucking trance a team, and then we'll go 1-0, 2-1, 1-0, 2-1, and then we'll go and fucking annihilate a team. And I think tomorrow could be a hiding. I reckon Arsenal will get a hiding because we're going to be hell bent on making an emphatic statement for Manchester City to say, like I said, we're not breathing down your necks, we're at your throats now. And this is what I'm banking on. So I'm gonna go real bullish. I'm gonna go 5.
Wow. Good one. You know what? I wanted 3 or 5. So you take the 5, I'll take the 3, and we'll settle on that one.
I'm gonna go 5s. And the reason why I'm gonna say 5s is because I think that Diaz wants more goals. I think he wants more goals. And I see him playing tomorrow. And they know this is going to be their last game for a little while, Forest and international break. So there's no reason why they can't go all out. I think all of them are going to look to ball out because none of them that start tomorrow will start against Forest. I think we will see a full change. other than the Timicas thing, because apparently he's sick or injured. So I don't know about Timicas. But I think they go all out. We shut down Arsenal, roll into the Nottingham Forest game. Hopefully we win that, and then into an international break with lots of rest. And I can probably predict that we're going to see some departures from international football during that game. We're going to see a few. I'm not quite fit enough, and all of that bollocks, because I think they know coming off the back of that straight into the City game, it's crunch time. I don't think any one of those players are going to want to get injured on international duty and potentially risk not being fit to play against Manchester City to go and slap them at the Etihad and potentially steal the title away from Manchester City.
Yeah, and I think Portugal, is it not that Portugal, like their big thing of what they play Turkey or something like that? Is that happening now? The whole like the qualification knockout stages, is that happening right now?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Well, anyway, there's some of our players that might be really, really into that international break. So yeah, it's gonna be a tricky one to navigate. That's for sure.
Definitely. Well, guys, that's been us here at the Red Sea Podcast talking about the Arsenal preview. SS, what we got coming up? We're gonna have a full-time show after Arsenal, aren't we?
Full-time show tomorrow, and then we've got a little bit of a break, but we don't tend to do previews for the FA Cup, so we'll have a little breather and then we'll come back strong for the big run-in. Like you say, the business end of the season. 9 or 10 games of the Prem, quarterfinals of the Champions League. I might do a little live watch along for the Champions League draw on Friday, potentially. Definitely got one eye on that. Will we get an English team? Potentially. Man United went out tonight, obviously, but you would expect Chelsea and City, obviously City already there as well. Could be some ding dongs ahead.
Yeah, I want City. Let's do it. Let's just do it. Let's just
always come Chelsea out of another competition. That might be fun.
No, I don't. I'd like Chelsea later on. Like I just want to just end City season. I want to end their season. I want it to be over. I want it to be over. Like literally, I want it to be over with, and then all the City fans can just shut up. Like I want it to be over with. I want to win. I want to just go to the Etihad, destroy them at the Etihad, get them in the Champions League, eliminate him from the Champions League, and then just go, do you know what, mate? Like, fuck off. Your season's done now. Do you know what I mean? And then after that, we can then go to Chelsea. We're probably going to be flying economy through Ryanair to get everywhere in Europe at the moment.
They're praying for an English draw, aren't they, Chelsea?
They are, well.
Travel restrictions.
Yeah, travel restrictions. But no, look, I think the Champions League draw will be interesting depending on who we get. So it will be great. But guys, look, thank you for joining us. It's been an amazing show. We've gone a little bit longer than normal, but when we do these little extended shows, it's always good content. Make sure you're liking, subscribing, and following everything the Red Sea Podcast had to offer. My co-host here, Southern Scouser, and George from our Red Sea Podcast Down Under. And if you haven't checked out their stuff, make sure you have a quick look on the playlist. It's all there for you as well. And guys, you know who I am. I'm your host, Tiago's Father 89. Make sure you're liking, following, and hitting us up on Twitter and on Instagram. We are over and we are out.